Since Peter Bendix took over as the Marlins president of baseball operations, the Marlins fan base has been divided. On today's show, we're going to explore both viewpoints.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. You can find me at Jeremiah Geiger2 over on X. And thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. And on today's show, I am joined by a big Marlins fans, George Aguilera at Marlins George over on X. George, it's an honor to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I woke up, like I told you, with a little bit of a raspy voice, but I'm excited to talk some Marlins with you.
It's awesome because this is a podcast for the fans, and I want to have fans come on the podcast and get their voice out to the rest of the Marlins community. And the first segment, what we're going to be talking about today, is the fan base, and it's kind of divided right now. Since Peter Bendix took over, there's been two sides. People who firmly believe without a shadow of a doubt that what he's doing is the right way to go about things, and then people who question it and are very frustrated with the team and might not necessarily dive into all the prospect rankings or whatnot. So I want to get your perspective, George, on where do you kind of sit in between those two sides?
So I'm a little bit of like a hybrid, right? So I understand both sides. I'm a business owner, so I understand both sides of the equation. It's tough. So as a Marlins fan, I understand Sherman, I understand Bendix, I understand where they're at and how they need to build. If we were the Dodgers, I'd be very upset with what they did and pretty much selling everyone to get a bunch of prospects. But the fact is that the Marlins don't have enough money to acquire these guys. So they have to find a solution first to get people to the or to increase the amount of wins, somehow get people engaged, get people to be fans. And then they definitely need to make some sort of big splash, because one of the things that I've noticed is that the prospects that we don't have top tier prospects. I feel like every franchise has that one, heavy hitter or that one guy, right? That one superstar. We don't have that. So eventually I feel that they need to do a splash, especially we're in Miami, right? So Miami is all about flash and, girls and being, it's a flashy city. So I feel if to get people involved in the team, you need to have flash on your team. You have to have superstars. The city of Miami just doesn't like mediocrity.
Yeah, and you touched on the fact it goes back to money. And I think what people sometimes fail to understand is Bruce Sherman right now, he's just not a good owner at all. He can't afford the team. He can't spend the money. And this is why they're doing this plan, is because he simply isn't going to be able to spend on top free agents. So it's not all about Bendix and he's the mastermind behind this. He's doing what he can do with the resources that's available to him. The big problem I've had with him is that the honesty to the fan base is just not there. There's no transparency. There's no communication to us as the fans. And like you said, the flash, the top prospects, the Giancarlo Stantons of the world that made Miami fans show up to the ballpark. And I mean, he won an MVP, we've had really good players.
A good example is Jazz. He wasn't, if you look at his analytics or his stats or whatever, he wasn't the best. What was his WRC plus? Maybe like 110 or 105.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy.
And he compared to the league, he wasn't great. But to the eyes of the city, he was the best. Why? Because he just had that flash in him.
It's a personality.
He had the personality. He had the flash in that. I feel like that's from being from Miami. That's what you like. You like that flash. Look at Jose Fernandez. That's why he's
Yep.
a fan favorite.
Do you think, George, that what they're doing, or let me rephrase this, after the 2023 season when they decided to rebuild, and I know I was thrilled, like the Marlins made the playoffs, let's go, maybe they can compete again in 2024, and then they just kind of stood pat. They didn't do anything. Kim Ng, they part ways, and you're like, no, here we go again. Like, what was your reaction to that then, and how do you feel about the position the team is right now?
So, in the moment, I felt like we could get better. I don't know the financial status in the background of how much money the Marlins have available for payroll or how much they were able to spend or whatnot. I kind of compare it to, when you have a girlfriend and then you break up. The day of the breakup, you feel like she was the best girl ever, right? And then after a couple months or a year or whatnot, then you get your new girlfriend, and odds are maybe she might be even nicer than the first one.
Right.
In the moment, it felt like what you had was the best. But now looking back at it, I feel like it might have been the right decision because in the time I didn't even notice our farm system was that bad.
Right. Yeah,
So
because
there
the
was
farm,
no pipeline to get to the big leagues.
that's the one thing I do credit Bendix for is what he's done to improve the farm has been great. It's in a better spot than it was in prior years. No doubt about that. The one thing I do agree with you with surrounding the farm system is it is lacking in top end guys. Like those hitters, especially right now, are just so far off from being, we have Augustin Ramirez, and I think he's the best position player the Marlins have, and he's close to major league ready. But overall, you look at the system, there's other teams who are doing the exact same thing. You compare this farm system to the Rays or the Orioles, for example, it's still going to be behind in star power. So I would probably rank it, maybe early teens, 14, 15, so middle of the pack, maybe a little bit better, but it's nothing crazy yet. So there's still progress to go.
Need to make some sort of big splash, and maybe come 2028, 2027, they need to sign some big free agents. Once they have that pipeline in place where I feel like the minor league system of the pipeline and prospects should just supplement your team and kind of bring in guys to fill in holes. I think the real big splashes have to be from the free agent market. That's just
because it supplements the core you build. Yeah, I agree with that, because without spending money at all, then you're going to run into a problem where your window is going to close very shortly and you're going to end up trading these players again. And maybe that's their plan. Maybe they honestly think, hey, look, we're going to establish a core 4 or 5 years, they hit arbitration, trade them, and restart all over again, which is very disheartening as a fan, because I do want to see, Connor Norby, Xavier Edwards, Thomas White eventually come up, Ramirez, these guys who I believe can be everyday contributors come up, and then boom, go out in the free agent market and make a signing or two. Because I think that's the way you succeed overall. But coming up next, in the next segment, we're going to talk about Sandy Alcantara. I know you have some thoughts on him. The trade rumors are going to be every week, every day this season. I mean, with every single spring training start, it looks like he's back. Recently, it's come out that he is going to be placed on an innings limit to start the season. I want to get your thoughts on that. That's going to come up right after the break. And if you're an everyday listener to Locked on Marlins, thank you for being here. If this is your first time, make sure you like the YouTube video, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below. I'm here again with George Aguilera. We're talking Sandy Alcantara, and I love Sandy Alcantara. He's one of my favorite Marlins ever. I think what he's done for this organization, just the work ethic, it's awesome. He's a unicorn in today's game, and I expect him to be completely healthy going into opening day. against Paul Skeens. But the Marlins seem to be putting an innings limit on him to start the season, which to me signifies they're trying to protect him to be a trade chip later down the road.
I see it like that, yeah. Because you want him to be as healthy as possible towards the end of the season, but also I feel like the inning limit not only comes from the Marlins, but it might also come from the doctor that did his surgery. So they, the doctor might have told the Marlins, at least for the first couple months, take it a little bit easier. I heard that he was only going to be pitching a max of 5 innings, at least for the first half of the season. So I'm not. I heard at the beginning during the offseason that he was just gonna be let loose and pitch whenever and how many ever innings. I found that a little bit strange. Every Tommy John pitcher that comes back always has some sort of pitch limit to them. So, but the trade rumors that's a little different. When it comes to trading Sandy, it's a little bit complicated. So trading Sandy is a two-way street. I feel like the primary goal is for the Marlins to extend him, right? So that I feel like that should be number one on the list. However, it's a two-way street. Sandy has to want to be a Marlin too, and I feel like a lot of Marlins fans don't recognize that part of the deal. For an extension, Sandy needs to want to be a Marlin as well. So the first thing I feel is that they need to try to extend them. If for some reason it's not a team-friendly deal or what Sandy wants is equivalent to what a regular free agent wants of his caliber, then it makes no sense. Then if that's the case, I would definitely trade him right now.
No, you're good. No, so the way I look, they already extended Sandy. Remember, just a few years ago, he had that team-friendly 5-year deal. He still has 2 more years on the deal plus the club option. The issue is, like you said, the money is team-friendly right now. So a further extension, especially if he pitches well, would probably be, a lot more money considering how he's worth, especially coming off Tommy John surgery, reestablishing himself as a Cy Young contender. And the Marlins don't extend anybody. They're not going to extend him. The issue is, though, when you look at the Marlins rebuild, we see how willing they are to trade players under team control. They traded Luzardo in the offseason. They traded Jake Berger. Both those guys had so much control left on their contract that with Sandy, you look at him, okay, he has 2 more years of control plus a club option if we wanted. The contract is team friendly, so teams aren't going to be turned off by the money. We could get a huge haul of prospects for it. And I think that's what they're ultimately going to do. I think the innings limit, like you said, it's happens to everybody coming off of Tommy John surgery. But I do have a feeling, this is pure speculation, that the Marlins are going to be very careful with him because they don't want to screw anything up with Sandy. They, like you said, 5 innings. I don't know how many, if he's going to be on a pitch count necessarily, but I would be surprised just from the news that came out, hey, it's public innings limit, that he goes into the 8th inning, at least for the first 2 months. And I see a scenario too, George, where Sandy's traded in May. If he establishes himself healthy, I know how Peter Bendix works now. We've seen this story before. He will trade you. So I talk about the deadline. It's terrible as a fan because we want to see this guy pitch. We want to see him be a Marlin for life, but it's just the writing's on the wall, I think.
Yeah. I just feel, again, I feel like priority number one, if I was, Sherman and Bendix, Sandy is your franchise right now. So I feel like priority number one is to try to extend them at all costs, see how much money, depending on their financial ability, I'm able to give this guy. If a deal is not able to be done due to finances or whatever the case may be, then I do think that they need to trade him because there's no reason to keep him for the next 2 years when we're not going to be competitive.
Yeah, because realistically, this team isn't going to be expected to compete till probably 2027, and that's if everything breaks the right way, like
2027
everything.
is a wild card.
Yeah, for a wild card, because I'm just looking at the guys in our division, like, how are the Marlins at the point they are right now and the trajectory they're heading on expected to compete with Atlanta or the Mets, who literally spent $1 billion in payroll,
For the
like
Nationals are now coming up, and they have pockets too.
Nationals are up. Yeah, like
in 2027, they're going to be right there in the race as well with us.
absolutely. I think the Nationals are a dark horse team to compete this year for a wild card berth. And that just is a testament to how deep Major League Baseball is, especially in this division. So you have to find something, if you're the Marlins, that gives you a competitive edge. And right now, I don't see them having a competitive edge in anything for the foreseeable future. The one thing that could get them a significant boost, would be, instead of letting Sandy waste away on a 90-loss team again, they trade him, and hopefully they get two. I mean, it has to be a haul if you trade him now, because the control's there. You're going to get a lot back. It has to be like 2 top 50 prospects, a major league ready guy. Like I've said before on this podcast, when ESPN does their grading system for the trades, it has to be A+ for the Marlins return. Nothing less.
No, nothing less. Do you have I guess like a team that fits the role for a trade?
So, yeah, I think there's a couple good fits. I think the Orioles are a very good fit because their window, I believe, is starting to close. They lost Corbin Burns. Now they don't spend a lot of money at all. They're one of the organizations that don't like spending on free agency very much. It's one of those things where they have a good core. They got Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman. The pitching staff is kind of their weakness, I would say. And you have Grayson Rodriguez, who's there. You lose Corbin Burns, but hey, you are a playoff team. What's going to put you over the edge? You have this deep farm system. I think Sandy fits the bill. The other team, ironically, and I've talked about this before, is the New York Mets. And that, to me, would be the worst case scenario, because I can't deal with Sandy to the Mets, because that's two pitchers in the division.
For sure.
Is there any team that stands out to you?
No, but I like the prospects the Red Sox have. So that
yeah, I do too.
Top 4 guys would be nice if there was some sort of deal that went on. I like that.
Yeah, no, and that's another team who I feel like would have no hesitations in spending what it takes to get Sandy, because they want to win right now. We see that with Alex Bregman. They just signed Bregman. They're coming off a season in which they had a losing season, and they got young guys like Roman Anthony. Now, I'm sure he's off the board, but like Christian Campbell, something like that, where Tristan Cassis is up there, but I personally wouldn't want Cassis headlining the trade. But I think if you have Cassis and maybe supplementing with
one headlining the trade, if anything.
Who's that?
Marcelo Meyer.
Oh yeah, Marcelo Meyer. Yeah, see that I could get behind, like Meyer and Campbell. It has to be 2 of the top guys, not just one. And again, there's no guarantees that they work out, but that's the risk you always take with trades. We've seen this story before.
Now that you mentioned that, one of the trades I don't particularly agree with was the Jake Burger trade. I know you've talked about it on here quite a bit. So the way that I see it, Max Acosta and Vargas can be great, but anytime you trade, it's always a gamble. And why gamble when you have someone that has so many years left on their for arbitration and whatnot for their contract to end on a gamble? Honestly, what they're hoping is for one of those 2 guys to become what he was, pretty much.
Right.
But
I like Max Acosta. I'm a believer in him because I'm an optimist. That's just how I roll. I think he is going to be a solid player. I think he can stick at shortstop and has some pop and a good hit tool. But the issue, again, Berger had 4 years of control left.
Yeah.
So what you're essentially banking on is this was the best possible return the Marlins could have gotten at the time you traded him. And I just didn't see it. I just didn't see that return was worth what Berger brought to the Marlins, because without Berger, there's no power. I mean, Berger, when he's in a good situation, is a guy who's legitimately a 30 home run, 100 plus RBI bat.
Yeah.
Maybe the average is low, but he drives in runs.
Yeah. Not only the what his stats say, but I feel like he brought good revenue to the Marlins with all the ads and different marketing campaigns that they were able to do around him. And that has to be worth something, a lot more than whatever they got.
I mean, time will tell, but like you said, I mean, he was a fan favorite. He was a fan favorite. Everybody loved him, Burger bombs for days. And then I woke up one morning and, Jake Berger's traded. I'm like, why? Like, oh man. Next segment, right after the ad, we're going to be talking about our favorite Marlins memories, try to spread some positivity here. That's going to come up right after this. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you and unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. If you love the no-shells variety, it's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. Whether you're snacking at your desk on a road trip or you just need a quick protein boost, they're always a go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein. It provides all 9 essential amino acids, and these little green wonders pack a protein punch. Grab the no-shells Wonderful Pistachios for that grab-and-go ease, or if you like the satisfying crack of opening each shell, grab the in-shell variety. It's like snack meditation. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Locked On Marlins is a great way to start off your day for your first listen, but check out Locked On MLB for your second listen if you haven't already. More comprehensive Major League Baseball coverage over there. I'm here with George Aguilera on Locked On Marlins. We're talking about the best Marlins memories that we have in this segment. George, I'll let you start. Give me, your first 2-3 core memories that you hold on to of being a Marlins fan.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know how long you've been a fan for, but I've only been a fan since like around 2013, 2014. So I'm not big on like the World Series or any of those things. So I feel like the first memory that comes to mind when I think Marlins is the day after Jose Fernandez passed away and D. Gordon hits the home run, lead off home run. I think that really put a staple in my heart, where that's the first thing that I think of when I think of a Marlins moment. And of course, the 2023 day where we clinched the postseason against the Pirates, that's another one. Other than that, there hasn't been others. Maybe a few walk-offs and stuff like that, but no big ones.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I didn't start watching baseball till 2013. So football was my first love. It's all I really cared about. And then for whatever reason, I started getting into baseball that year. And 2014 was when I saw Giancarlo Stanton hit a walk-off grand slam against the Mariners. And for whatever reason, I decided, I'm going to be a Marlins fan. Like, I love this Stanton guy. And I followed them the entire rest of the season, like, diehard. I remember listening to my mom's Sirius XM radio and to the Marlins games with Glenn Geffner, Dave Van Horn. And that year was actually really fun because I felt like the Marlins 2014, they were competitive up until the trade deadline. So they actually got a couple acquisitions. I'm like, maybe they could make the wild card. And of course they didn't. 2016, same kind of deal. So 2023 was really my only experience watching the Marlins in the playoffs, excluding the COVID season, because that was fun, but it's still like there's an asterisk there. It's half the league made the playoffs that year. But 2023 was unbelievable. I mean, from start to finish, you're like, is this actually happening? And then do you make the playoffs? And unfortunately, you get swept by the Phillies, and it's over just as soon as it started.
First round.
I think a lot of my memories surround players, and that's why I think it's important for the Marlins fan base to have that connection with players, because I do have an emotional connection when players get traded. When they've been here a while, like when Jazz got traded, I liked the return, but man, I was a little bit sad. Like, I loved seeing Jazz in a Marlins uniform, and then that's gone. Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich. Yelich was one of my favorites, and Yelich was traded in the middle of a very team-friendly deal, and that trade obviously didn't work out. And then Sandy, of course. Sandy, that Cy Young season, I think was just awesome, because I would literally be like, every other Marlins game might be a loss, but when Sandy starts, he could pitch a complete game and shut them out. Like, that's how dominant he was in 2022. So that season was awesome, and I can't wait to see him pitch again this year. So that's kind of where I sit with the memories. It's just, I want to experience that joy of watching my team be competitive. I just want to see them compete. Turn on MLB Network and say, look at the standings. Oh, we're 2 games out of first place. We can do this. We can compete. And right now it's like, we're going into the year and you look at the schedule, man, this team might be 15 games under by the end of April.
Oh man. Yeah. Well, hopefully not. Hopefully we don't start the same way we did last year.
Oh, that was brutal.
And the worst thing is, the first game we were up, half the game, and then and then all of a sudden we lost.
Oh man.
Right there.
It's like this season in particular, I know there's low expectations surrounding the wins and losses. They're expected to be a 90 loss team, if not a 100 loss team. But I think there are some positives to take away, especially during spring training. You want to see these guys develop, and maybe Connor Norby turns into a star. The pitching staff stays healthy. There's always something that you can root for, but it has been difficult the last calendar year. There's just no other way to put it. You come off the playoff berth, you tear it down. You see Arias get traded. You see Jazz get traded. And now we're talking about Sandy likely getting traded. It's been difficult, but to me that offers, I guess, nobody can question our fandom. The people that stay here and watch this team, like, when everything goes well and the Marlins are in the playoffs, man, we're gonna be talking.
For sure.
But yeah, do you have any other comments or topics before we get out of here that you wanted to bring up on the show?
No, I think we've covered everything so far.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Marlins. Be sure to follow George over at @MarlinsGeorge on X. Big Marlins fan. Follow myself at Jeremiah Geiger 2. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts, as always, on the YouTube channel, Monday through Friday. And with that, stay safe and let's go fish.